Aloha, my name's Anna Covert, and I'm coming to you from my battleship here on the beautiful island of Oahu. This week on the Covert Code, the topic is maximizing sales performance through technology and data strategies. And I'm pleased to introduce Chaz Tedesco from Call Tools. And today we're going to be speaking about sales enablement strategies and how to use data to inform better business decisions. Thank you so much for being here, Chaz.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Just a little background. I was recently introduced to Chaz through our client Wolf River Electric and been so impressed with not only the software that you've been able to help us customize, but just the ability to really, nurture and use these different types of live funnels and filters and team distributions to create a more meaningful experience and just better tracking and data integrity. So thanks so much for all your hard work on
Oh, it's a pleasure. Been absolutely
the share strategies with the rest of my listeners.
awesome. Well, yes, again, thank you so much for having me. It really comes down to three things. It's people, process, and technology, right? So the technology is one component, but unless you have a proper process and then the people doing what they need to do, it kind of falls by the wayside. So yeah, we try to, help, and I've done a lot in terms of building teams, working with different teams. So any little piece of information I could share that helps is what I try and do.
Great. Well, then to get the party started, why don't you give us a little background of your professional journey and how you ended up at Call Tools?
Oh, crazy. Yeah. So it all started, I guess I could go all the way back real quick. I'll try not to be too long. I was a pizza delivery driver, and my father had gotten on me. He said, "You need to get a new job. You're beating your car up." And I'm a young kid and I think I know better, but I listened, and I was on Craigslist one night going through the ads and I saw like digital marketing, like local digital marketing company. So I called him up the next morning, said, "Come on down." And I ended up, getting the position. And this is where I think having a mentor is so important because I think I was about 19 years old at the time. I was younger, and the owner of this business had built an incredible SEO agency. They did a lot of pay per click. They did bulk email. That's something I learned, very early on. And he took me under his wing, right? And not many people would be willing to do that and train somebody that young. But I was hungry. I wanted to work, and I learned a lot, in a very short time frame. Fast forward a couple years, we had a client that we took on in the solar industry that was just kind of getting started. They had a nice business. I think they were annualizing around 3 million in revenue, and at the time when I came in, and I came in to do the things that I had learned, right? Digital marketing, lead generation, and at that time, there was no other tech person in the company that could help set up computers. So I was kind of touching everything. And they said, "We're going to start a call center," right? And my first thought process at the time, not knowing any better, I'm like, people don't answer the phone. What do you mean call center? So fast forward, a couple years, we were able to scale that company significantly. I think at the time that I left, we were in the hundreds of millions of annual revenue. We had a 500-person call center, and I really got to learn a lot. So it kind of came full circle, in terms of me not understanding call center to kind of, I don't want to say mastering it, but learning a lot about it and what works and what doesn't work. Ended up doing something else for about 2 years. We actually ran the Call Tools platform with that other organization I was with, and then stayed very close with the company. And here I am, and they're coming on board, so it all kind of came complete circle around. So.
Wow. Well, what sounds like you got a lot of different passions. I know you do, and one of them is absolutely helping people and solving problems.
Good.
Tell me, where did this? Do you have any kind of pivotal story or milestone that kind of made you know, yes, sales enablement, and this is what I want to do?
I don't know if there's one specific moment. Again, I do like helping people, right? So the fact that I can help people in their, when you talk about people on the phones or salespeople, that, their livelihood is being able to perform. If there's something that I can do that gives them just a little bit of a push in the right direction that can help them, or they can help them call the right person, not even just call, but, just set up for success. I get a lot of pride in that and watching, people being able to take it to the next level.
Yeah. So one thing I guess that's on the tip of my brain here is when we think about you made the comments of that who answers their phone, right? And I think that kind of stemmed from how when we all had landlines, right? And then when people went to cell phones, then they stopped having landlines. What are your thoughts? Or if people, how much of the population now still has a landline?
I don't know. Probably not many, right? When I think of landline, I think of my grandmother who's in her 90s. I think she's the only one I could put my finger on. But no, I think it's all gone to cell phone. Um, yeah, so it's been a big shift. And again, I think when I was thinking, back in that story from earlier about people answering their phone, that was what I was thinking, right? Landlines, get in the phone. Do you remember your parents pick up? Oh, I don't want this, and they hang up, But what I learned very quickly was that wasn't what we were building. I mean, sure, we were calling some people, cold calling and doing that type of outreach with that previous organization I was with. But a lot of the people had wanted to hear from us, right? They came to our website, they opted in. And that's the part that didn't click for me until we actually started doing it. I'm like, wait a minute, these people want to hear from us and they want what we have to offer. So that's I think a big moment where my mental shifted. I'm like, okay, we're not just annoying people, we're giving them the call that they want to receive, you
That's a
know?
good point. Yeah. And now with these, new SEC regulations, what are your thoughts on how it's going to change call centers?
Yeah, so again, the rules are the rules, right? So you're gonna wanna be read up on all the changes and make sure that you're into, the compliance of what's being asked. I think that what came about, and I think the reason for this big change that's coming up, the one-to-one consent, had to do with kind of a loophole that existed, right? And people exploited it as they do with anything, where people were putting out, get this $50 gift card, win this sweepstakes, right? In the fine print of their lead forms, they were saying, oh, by completing this lead form, you're allowing, you're entering the sweepstakes and you're allowing our partners to reach out to you located on this page. Well, anybody who, which most people don't, goes into that fine print and clicks to that partners page, it listed 5,000 companies,
Yeah.
names, right? So now they're getting calls for warranty, they're getting calls for insurance, they're getting calls for all kinds of crazy things. And I think that the way, and I'm no legal expert, but I think that in the current way things were set up, that technically was okay, right? It was an opt-in lead. The person signed off or filled out the form saying they wanted to hear from these people. And I think that's what they're setting out to solve right now, right? Now, I'll keep my personal opinions out of it. Do I think what they're doing is going to solve the problem of getting phone calls and text messages and all this communication? I don't know. Maybe. But again, it's something to be aware of and to always keep up with, what the changes are.
Yeah, no, I think to your point, a lot of people we to remember that we want this information, right? And
Sure.
I think that's going to hopefully, like my hope is that it's going to lead to a higher quality, call because it isn't going to be so on the fence, right? When they get a call, they don't know. The immediate thing I think people think about is who's bothering me, who is this? I don't know who they are, and we're already, but or we have more, with being able to register numbers, through different sites and just hopefully it will make it so that it's easier to say why we're calling and that they will know why we're calling and that will lead to greater result.
Exactly. Yeah, it's building that trust, knowing that people might actually be more willing to fill out that form when they know what company it is that's going to be reaching out to them and, for what reason, right? So, yeah, I think overall it could be a really good thing. And it could get a lot of those companies out there that again, there was a lot of activity and there probably still will be lead vendors that were not creating fake leads, but creating low quality leads, right? Okay, I want to get an opt-in lead and I'm going to pay, top dollar for that opt-in lead. Well, really, was it an opt-in lead for your product or service, or was it just one of these, co-read shared leads? And I've seen it all, right? I've worked with a lot of lead vendors. We had a lot of spend through numerous different organizations that I've seen, and people, for better or for worse, were pushing through a lot of. Some of it was legitimate, and some of it wasn't, and they were just kind of trying to see when your radar would tip off and be like, hey, something's wrong with these leads. Or if you don't say anything, do it more, put more of that data in, put more of that data in, right? And see if you're going to just keep buying it with a smile while these companies were pulling, some shady things. So,
Well, I think that that's exactly it. It's like one of the things that I really like about the Call Tools platform, is, for instance, is the ability to have these different ways to filter and tag and create different experiences based off where we think this data is from, right? The call cadence and whatnot. What do you think are some of the biggest challenges that face call centers?
Sure. Yeah. I think a lot of people out there don't there's a couple things, right? They don't understand what their data is or how to work it in an efficient manner, right? So that's again, I didn't plan on talking too much about the call tool system, but I'll use some of the things that we do in our platform just in a general sense. But having a follow-up cadence, right? Knowing that after, the first call, maybe you'll call them back in 4 hours, you'll call them back the next day, and having, things in place to ensure that those calls are happening. Because if you rely on your agents to all do their own follow up and to do their own things, not that I'm knocking any agents out there, anybody who's calling, but from my experience, a lot of stuff gets missed, and so having a really, really easy way to track your data, know where it is in its life cycle, and be able to continue to work it. I always say that, a lead is never truly dead unless they've told you to be on their do not call list or they've purchased the product or service that you offer. But even in that case, maybe in 6 months from now, there's still a good opportunity, right? So every piece of data needs to have some type of future action on it. Again, unless they've given you a do not call request or they unsubscribe from your email list, you have to honor that and leave those people alone, right? But when I say this, people are like, "Oh, so you're going to call somebody 20 times a day until they're annoyed?" No, that's not what I'm saying, right? But if somebody says they're not interested, maybe they were quick, they were driving that day. Hey, yeah, I was calling about this product and service. Not interested. They didn't even hear what you had to say, right? They don't even know what they said not interested to. You call back again, maybe this time instead of a female's voice, it's a male's voice. Hey, how you doing? Oh, yeah. And then they hear you out for a couple extra seconds, and now it's a great opportunity. So always having that follow-up cadence is huge. And then having your KPIs in line, understanding what it is you're looking for that's showing the successful action within your business that are working. And on the flip side, what's not working, right? Are you trending up or down in terms of what the end goal is that you're trying to achieve? So.
So, in terms of the sales enablement and like working, you work with so many different sales organizations and leaders. What are some of the lessons that you've learned, and how has it helped shape your approach to recommendations for others?
Yeah, great question. I think when it comes down to it, one of the biggest ones, and it's very, very simple, right, is high energy. High energy and confidence. You could not know what you're talking about whatsoever and be uneducated about a product or a service or whatever it is you're talking about. But if you get on the phone excited and you get on there and their energy, whoa, sometimes people are knocked out of their seat. Whoa, yeah, what does this guy have to say? What's in his coffee? I want some of that. So I've seen so many times, I'll go back to the solar example where one of the top setters that comes to mind, we couldn't put our finger on it. He was setting appointments, which you would think sounded like, they weren't going to be good, but they stuck and they closed. And the calls would be really fast. He'd get on there high energy. Hi, how you doing? Yeah, I want to talk about your property at 125 Grove Avenue. Yeah, we're gonna play basketball after work, basketball. I'll be over there, shoot some hoops. 2:30. I'll be there at 2:30 with a basketball, right? And it's like, whoa, what did you just? Are you playing basketball with this guy? Are you selling him solar? What's going on? And that's what really to trigger in my head the high energy piece, right? People were just excited to hear, that in their day, maybe for whatever reason. So that's a big one. I talked a little bit about, no lead ever being dead already. I had my notes here, and asking the right questions, I think, is huge, right? I see that people who talk a lot in sales, that do a lot of talking, and they try and talk about all the features and benefits, it doesn't go very far, right? I've seen the most successful sales calls and conversations. The customer, or the person who's looking to make a decision, is the one who does most of the talking. And you get there by asking the right questions, right? So, I kind of have like a little I guess it's a formula, but you kind of, start with, where did you come from? So, what are your current processes and procedures? What have you looked at in this space? What have you looked at in terms of comparisons here? All right, where are you today? What are you currently doing? Is that working for you? What's working great? What's not working for you? And where do you want to be in the future, right? So you're getting the full time on what they've done, where they currently are, what their aspirations are. And then you now have all the things that you need to come in and say, well, listen, here's what we have to offer you, and here's why I'm uniquely qualified to be the person to solve your problem.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like almost like, just yesterday I was in Maui and I was meeting with a potential client and they invited me over there for their sales kind of summit, which is very cool. And one of the guys put up this little clip from Boiler Room. I'd seen it, and it was like, that's at the end of every call, if someone's selling someone something, either you're selling them your solution or they're selling you a reason why they don't want it, and you're buying that, right? And so, I got like chills even just hearing that. It was so powerful. But pace, especially when solar is like, oh well, it's too expensive. Well, compared to what? And and getting oh, and that's not ready right now. Well, when will you be ready? If I could send you a check starting today every month for $200, how would that change your life?
Right.
Would it change?
What's the risk you're taking by not doing this, right? Well, the power's going up every year, you can't control that. I mean, it's most of these states have a monopoly on the energy. Some of them have deregulated energy here and there, but so you're going to you're going to leave yourself at the liberty of the electricity companies, right? With solar, you have an option to own something that's an asset as opposed to a liability that you have no control over. And over time, depending on which programs you're in, you could pay it off and essentially eliminate, your payments. So,
Right. I mean, do you want to be a slave to the meter?
right, exactly. So
You can't.
you need to do that, but what are you risking by not doing this?
Right, exactly. The loss aversions strategies. So, tell me about maybe a situation where, or a time where you were using technology and it didn't work as expected, and how did the team pivot, or how did you recommend a solution to overcome that challenge?
Sure. So yeah, one comes to mind that wasn't fun. And this is beyond, systems sometimes have outages and stuff. Let's put that to the side. That happens. There's things to do to mitigate that and be ready for those types of disaster kind of recovery and keeping your teams working. But in terms of technology, I remember um, there was a point with one of the organizations I was working with where they were spending a ton of money, on leads and opportunities in a highly competitive industry. And, we found out, or the company found out that some of those leads were getting siphoned out to another competitive company, right? And people were freaking out. It was a witch hunt, that's it. If we can't trust this department, just let them all go and we'll start over, whoa, that's 20, 25 people on the line. They're like, Chaz, you run the tech. What's your idea? How do we solve this? What are we going to do? Right? So there's always creative ways to think about it. But the problem was that we had no way of knowing who was looking at what records in our CRM. Right? So I sat there and racked my brain. They called all the partners into a meeting. It was like the building was going to explode, because of the situation. So what we did was very simple. Again, that it's always a simple solution to things. So what we did was we took away permissions from everybody in the platform. There was no way to do what we need to do within the system. So we create a simple web form, right? You could search in the system. You could see basic contact information, right? Maybe first name, last name, street address, and state, right? Something that wouldn't be, risky for people to see. They could identify that's the record that they needed with an identification number. And then we just created the form. Okay, what's your name? Okay, I'm Chaz Tedesco. Here's the contact ID that I want to look at. Submit. It would assign that lead to me. So now in our system, we have a full log of everyone who's ever taken ownership of a record. So if anything ever happens, okay, here's the list of people we need to look for. Went into that meeting, everyone's all fired up, they're ready to go. I sat down. Well, why don't we do this? And it just like everything deflated. Everyone's like, okay, yeah, we solved it. That's it. Meeting off. That was it. So
Time for drink.
Illinois slipped back to me because I felt like a lot of people were at jeopardy, and although it wasn't directly my fault, I wanted to try and help the situation. So
Well, I think that that's really cool, and that's one of the other things that I really appreciate about the data in general and what it can do for you and how it can be used against you.
sure.
Right.
I
And
had to stay on the same topic. I had a team at that point that had access to all the systems. Right? I was the admin for a lot of our platforms, and the guys would bother me all the time. Trash, just give me admin access. Why can't you have to? I have to come to you every time I need to do this. Listen, I don't. When something happens, I don't want anybody's name even on the list. Right? It's not even possible that they could have done this or this could have happened. Right? So kind of goes hand in hand with those.
It's true. It's like safeguarding. It's the same thing when with WordPress even. And a lot
Yeah,
of they
yeah.
grant someone an access and then they're like, "Well, this password is ridiculous." I'm like, "It's for your protection."
Yeah.
Reason why is because of how easy it is to hack. And even then,
Yeah.
if you how am I gonna remember this? I'm like, "You're not gonna remember, right? You're gonna use a password saver to save it, and if you forget it,
Sure.
you're gonna reset it, and then it'll be fine. You can reset every single time you wanna log in." Right?
Right.
Right.
And there's a lot of that right now,
No, don't yeah.
in the world. The data security is getting crazy. It seems like almost every day that there's something else happening and, using your two-factor passwords and all that. So, yeah.
I think that's a great opportunity to, like, even, people don't do as much as they should. I think that you brought up a really good point of I'm always kind of harping on clients to, hey, especially big organizations that hire and fire quickly. It's like, what is the process for onboarding and offboarding? Because every single user has a cost associated to it. And if you're not carefully monitoring that, it may not seem like a lot, but here you have a Gmail account, $12, $15, $20. You have a Zoom account, add $15 a month. You have a seat well, software, you're looking at $200, between 50 or $200 a month, right? Or more
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
of that
And
cleanup.
if you're out there in solar watching this, now we're talking about security, and your password is solar123, please go and change it. I've seen dozens of companies that have the same password for years. Please do not do that. That is not a good password for you.
Here's a risk. But I can name a couple as well that have that.
Yeah, don't just change it, please. Please. Anything else?
You have a good some interesting thoughts about being energetic and asking the right questions and getting them to just say yes, right, and talk about themselves and share, right. So what do you think the role of storytelling plays in sales?
I think it's everything. I think it's everything, to come in and build it up and show the value as to what you're doing. And again, I touched on a lot of this stuff earlier, but why is it that I'm the one that's uniquely qualified to solve this problem for you? And a lot of times a sale or people parting with money is it's an emotional thing. It's an emotional connection, right? So to build that up and to maybe even get out of the sales script, the most successful conversations are really one where you just build rapport with the person and get to know, oh, you have a dog, Chihuahua. Yeah, my dogs have Chihuahua too. Before you know it, you talk for 2 hours, the person's going to remember you and then feel good about you. And when it comes time to make that decision, it's not going to be the person that sat there and listed 20 different features that their system has and that can do. It's going to be that connection that they made, and knowing that they're going to be taken care of.
Yeah, I think, it's also interesting back to my experience yesterday. One of the people who were speaking, he was one of the top SunPower sales guys ever. And he, I think there's really a delineation of the type of company. And for me, I have a clear one. It's either those solar companies that are one close, like one meeting, one close. If you don't sell it, you don't get another chance. It's going to go to someone else. Right. And that's a totally different sales experience than, hey, I have other companies who won't even let someone sign a contract on the first consultation.
Right.
That's
Yes.
that. So that is such a big gap, and both work, but I think that's all part of that, what is your comfort level and what is your style, but it's interesting. What do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said about both approaches, right? I mean, I know some companies that have been so aggressive. You can't leave that house until you have a signed contract. I don't care, So they sit there for 5 hours, and they get it signed. I mean, they somehow, maybe the person just wants to get them out of the house, but is that going to stick, when 24 hours passes and they want to cancel, is that really what's best? So I think being genuine is important. For sure. I've also seen the companies, again, like you said, that try and make sure, okay, listen, weigh all of your options. Being confident in your product is huge too. If you have the confidence that, listen, no matter what you find out there and do out there, I know where they're going to be the best fit for you. And you could show that to them, whether it be through your conversation, through whatever it is, those are the relationships that are going to last and that's going to be meaningful. But yeah, I've seen both styles, and in terms of gross sales, I don't know. I mean, maybe I've seen both work is the point.
Yeah, well, I mean, and so
I
I
don't
just always
know.
think I always think about my personal experience when selling solar, and I I had, I was getting SunPower appointments at the time when I first started. And I was going there with this head engineer from Sunsphere, which was the company that I was selling with locally here. And we were like an unbeatable team, because he was like this head engineer and he's like measuring things and looking at and here I was. And I mean, and it didn't feel like pressure, but most of the time, or what, it's pretty rare that someone didn't sign because of the convenience of it. Right.
Sure.
But at the same time, in person or just as we even communicate, and the phone is one less, we're Zooming now, which is closer to in person, but a call,
Sure.
you really have to do a lot. What do you think? How do you think the role of voice or even accent play in your performance when you're calling someone?
Mm. Good question. Wow, I think for that one on that one for a minute, but um, let's face it, everyone has their initial interpretation of what somebody is upon meeting them, whether it be how you sound, look, height, weight, whatever it may be. So I think if you get somebody on the phone and they have an accent that's different than yours, immediately you recognize that. Is it always a bad thing? I don't think so. Actually, I think if you get like a British or a European accent, it almost sounds more like qualified and, like, oh, wow, this person's smart, even though what they could be saying the exact same thing as the person next to them. So definitely plays a big role. I missed the first part. What was the first part of that one again?
I always just think it was just about, how we communicate, how communication changes.
Oh, I remember. So what the channels were, right? So voice versus video versus in-home.
Use the
The
word layers, like text is, I love when people say that they're communicator or they texted someone. I'm like, well, okay, like as we, well, there wasn't maybe that's an easy way to misconstrue information, right?
I've seen every spectrum of communication. An organization I worked with that did a lot of sales training, development, and coaching. They used to say, "Put down the pen, pick up the phone." We don't care. We don't want emails being sent. You could send them, but that's not a KPI for us. We don't care about how many text messages you send, right? Unless you get somebody on the phone and speak with them and can have a meaningful conversation where they can hear your tonality, they can hear your voice. I think that's so critical now that you got me on this topic in today's world is that you can't tell tonality or anything over written communication, whether it be text, email, phone. There's times where, people who I work with, we're having a great morning, we get off an amazing phone call, I get a long Slack message or a text message, whatever it may be, email, and I think, oh my God, this person's fired up, they're upset, there's something wrong. I get back, I write my message, I get them on the phone, they're laughing. Hey, how you doing? Oh yeah, you saw that email? That's great. I built this whole story in my head that something's wrong, something's not right, whatever, and that's why the teams that, I directly manage it and I work with, if there's ever something that's questionable, just get on the phone because you can't tell, right? And there's so many different perceptions that you can write on the same. There used to be a sentence I had that was a go-to one, and I forget it now. But when you say in different tonality the same sentence, it completely changes the meaning.
It does, especially now as we start to, with even social content and whatnot. My go-to is always to say it out loud because we now you don't hear as much. We read more than we hear because that's how we're engaging, right? And it just sounds different in your own brain, like to your point, you know.
Yeah, and sometimes those little filler words too, like when you're reading it and you're trying to read it, it just doesn't. Bleh, it just doesn't sound.
Exactly. You're like, "That doesn't sound the way I want it to sound." So,
Yeah.
I now I guess we have to switch the topic to something that everyone has to talk about, which is AI, right?
Oh,
What are your thoughts of, just in general of AI? And I know we're talking about more than this call centers, but how
sure.
by using it currently, how have you used it? What do you think how's it gonna change communication?
Sure. I mean, let's keep it general. At Call Tools, we are evaluating a couple projects right now that are kind of under the hood, so I won't bring too much to light just yet. But in terms of AI in general, have always been one that embraces technology. I know that it's in the world, it's split. Some people reject it, some people hate new things and change. I love it, so I think it's incredible what's out there right now. I think that if you're not using AI at some capacity, I mean, I know everyone thinks Chat GPT AI, that's the only app. There's a lot of really cool platforms and things you can do. But if you're not at least brainstorming or using it to ask questions or to draft initial emails, I think you're behind the boat, because there's certain things that I could sit there and I could write, but just to put in a couple sentences, hey, give me some ideas about this. Boom. It's giving me things I would have never thought of that quickly that I can leverage and then take forward. So I think it's going to get better and better with time. I think it's something to embrace. Do I think at this point I mean, I guess, yeah, at this point it is probably, people are afraid, oh, it's taking over jobs. I think it is at some capacity, depending on the job or role you're talking about. But I think in some capacity it's not, right? I think there's still always going to need to be that human, you know, decision making that needs to happen for certain things. And it's not quite there where I think it can fully replace that. When it comes to voice, AI and voice, I think it's awesome what's out there. A lot of really cool inbound use cases. I know for outbound, you have to have certain consent and certain things to be able to use that. But just for having conversations, once you actually do connect to an AI bot via voice, I think it's still, you can tell, right? As a human, you can tell that it's an AI voice, no matter how quickly it responds, no matter what tonality changes it does. And I think for today, at least from what I see, maybe there's things out there that I haven't gotten my hands on yet or played with. But it seems like it's a great step in the right direction. You can have a meaningful conversation. It can route calls. It can answer questions for you. And I think it's really cool. But I don't, at least from what I've seen, right? Personally, I haven't seen anything that can replace that human agent on the phone. So it's like when you get a chatbot on a website and it's like, oh, try asking me your question. And you put it in there and it gives you like 10 bullet points. Did we solve your answer? No, give me a live agent. Oh, what about this? Did we answer your question? No, give me a live agent, right? I think it's still very much that with the AI chatbot. Oh, yes. Hi, how are you doing? Oh, did you try updating this and that setting? Did we solve your problem? No, live agent, please. Give me somebody live, you know?
No, I think you're
So,
right. I think you're right. It's about like the training of it. And if and my always my go-to concern is if we train it today, will it know what to do tomorrow? Right? It's not, I can give it every answer that I know today, but as society changes or trends change, if we're not continuing to teach it or, you know,
yeah, it's got to be constant. Yeah.
right. It's kind of like the going not to talk about soul all the time, but going back to those people who, I think that there was a huge issue that happened. Well, not issue, but big, as NEM 2.0 ended in California and then 3.0 happened and people were, it's just this huge bubble and it was bursting and people were crying. It's the end of solar. And of course, me being over here in Hawaii, I didn't have that feeling because NEM already ended here in 2015. And solar is far from dead. We're at 30% of the state
For sure. Yeah.
storage and whatnot. But now it's like I see that it's the old guys, right? Not necessarily all of them, not trying to, put people in a category based off of that. But
Sure.
those that were always talking about how much you could save, right? What was the ROI or payback? That's the wrong question. They have already said yes to this meeting. They have already asked for solar. Don't talk
Or
them out of it because you're uncomfortable with the payback not being as much as it used to be.
sure. That's a big, what you just said there is critical. Saying too much, right? I've analyzed thousands of calls through the years, different companies, different things. There's so many times where people already got the yes and they say that one extra sentence and it blows it up. The conversation carries on for another half an hour, right? Um, oh, what do you mean by that? Oh, what is that? Oh, wait, hold on a second, right? Sometimes it's better just be succinct, let it go and don't say too much. We've had I see a lot of really good talent out there that couldn't get out of their own way. They just had to keep talking, keep talking, keep talking, keep talking, keep talking. And if you overshare, it's just too much. It's not gonna. First of all, people can't retain all that information, and second off, you're gonna talk yourself right out of the
The
sale.
contract. Yeah, or is it what they wanna hear, to your point? Like, if you're listening more than talking, then you would know what's important to them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So on
Yeah.
that note,
Yeah.
what piece of advice do you wish you had given someone early in your career?
Great question. Great question. I can go from things that I've been told, and I'm an open book, right? You can teach me something today. I'll learn from anybody. I'll learn from somebody on the street that I don't know that's got a ripped shirt if it makes sense to me, and I'm like, oh, I'll take that feedback. Oh yeah. So, um, I think one thing I did very early in my career is I said yes to everything, right? Oh, can you do this? Yeah. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. I'm there at 2 a.m. working on, server rack, and I'd never figured it out. And I guess to my benefit, right? I said yes because I knew no matter what, I was going to figure out a way to make it happen, whatever the request was, even if I didn't know exactly the answer at that time. But I would say that, it hurts you in the long run because then if when you say no, it's a shock to everybody around you, right? Oh no, I can't do that, or not necessarily no, but maybe it's just not the answer that they wanted, or it's not just an easy like, yes, okay, I'll always do exactly what it is, or telling them what they want to hear. So that was a big one for me, and it took me a long time because I just thought, listen, I'm helping people. I want to say yes to everybody and help everyone. It's not realistic. So there was that one. I think rushing to respond to, and I'm not about not being prompt. I mean, I'm very prompt with things, but the amount of times where, it's an emergency and 5 minutes goes by and it's not an emergency anymore. Oh, we figured it out. Oh, we got it taken care of, right? So I used to drive myself crazy every time something came in. Oh, hold on, drop what I'm doing over here to help over here, to help over here, to help over here. And, whereas if I just took a step back, not that I would deprioritize it if it truly was an emergency, but listen, hold on just for 1 minute. Let me wrap up my thought here. I'll be with you in just a minute. 5 minutes goes by. Oh, we figured it out. Everything's good. Right? So
Yes.
that was one thing that I think was big. Um, when escalations happen, right? There's an escalated situation, whatever it may be, right? Somebody's upset about something or something didn't go right. I think just creating a little bit of space for you and for the other person, right? Because I'm New Jersey, I'm Italian. I get, I want to get all crazy, so I just need to sometimes step away, take a breath for a minute, and vice versa with the client too, or the client or the customer, whoever's coming to you. Sometimes they're, oh my God, I can't believe this happened, blah, blah, blah. If it's not mission critical and their systems are down or something's not working, sometimes it's better to take a little bit of time. And then when you come back together, it's okay. You can have a normal conversation with no emotion, right? And I think that was the next one I was going to talk about is bringing emotion into business. Um, it's hard not to, right? People are emotional. They feel emotion towards everything, towards their performance, towards, everything that's happening. But in reality, when it comes to businesses, and it's not that you can't care about somebody, talk to them, but when you're looking at truly a business and a business structure, you cannot bring emotion into your decision making process, and the ability to detach and to look at the numbers, it's hard. You might really like this person, right? They're amazing. You laugh every morning. You have coffee by the water cooler. They're amazing. But compared to the rest of the team, they're the bottom performer, right? So are you going to work with them? What are you going to do? Um, I used to say it all the time, because we used to have a large team that I would help manage, and we would do all the KPIs and the conversions and reporting. I would almost say, listen, I don't want to know the name of the person. I just want you to give me the report, put agent A through F, put agent 100 through 500 on the list, show me their conversion rate, show me their performance. The bottom 10%, we need to do something about them, right? I don't care who they are, what their name is, how friendly I am with them. So, in terms of things I've learned through the years, yeah, I mean when you're analyzing KPIs, I think removing emotion from the equation is very hard to do. I find it hard for myself to do, but as much as you can, it'll drive you towards what's truly important that you need to address. I think at that time.
Those are some really good tips there, and things that I've also done myself, like, early on in my career, especially being a woman in business,
Sure.
thing and feeling like that. I remember this one time after a call with a client, I had the sales guy who had hired me when I first had my own. First, I had a business partner when I was 28 that was much older that we started our first agency, or my first agency, which was Wind on Water Syndication. And then about 6 years in, I fired him and took the clients and started covert communication. But the little,
Hmm.
But having that, I never forget this client called and he says, just give him, he was the boss was on and he wanted something. And so just give him what he wants. And I was like,
Sure.
and the problem with doing that is that you're the one who gets blamed later. No one ever remembers the things that go right. Like, you can have 100 right things. It's that one wrong thing that
That's
is
right.
what they remember. And so I think, like, one of my tips is just having integrity for what you do and believing in your values. And now, now that I'm older and wiser, if it doesn't, if it's not going to work, I'm going to listen. Like, I'm not going to do this for you. Or if I,
Right.
that's not gonna do it. You're gonna have to have someone else do it, and I understand if this means that this is the end of our agreement.
Sure, and again, once you do that once, it's always remembered, and they're gonna push for a little more next time, and a little more next time, and a little more next time, and then you're 3 steps outside of what, you agreed upon or that was supposed to be happening, and because you're not giving them that 4th ask, 4 asks later, now you're the bad guy, right? "Oh my god, I can't believe this," this
Or it
is that.
doesn't work, even worse,
Right,
works,
or just
but
lack of
that
communication, right?
well,
Yeah.
different or the yes man, right? Yeah. So, I guess my last question for you is, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Oh man, great quote. Wow, that one was on the list here, so I wasn't ready for it. That's a great question. I think I'll always be, I mean, I love Call Tools, so I'm Call Tools to the end. Amazing leadership over here, amazing owners. It takes a lot in business, while we're on these topics, to find the right people, right? The right people that feel right, that treat you right, that you get along with. And unfortunately, in my career, I've had, the full spectrum of, working with people that change or whatever. But I firmly believe I found the right team here with Call Tools. And that's why it's been amazing to go full circle as a customer for all those years and then to be on the team now. Um, so definitely continuing to develop this platform and then to get to be, a leader in this space. In terms of, just personal, just playing with different technologies. I love what's going on with AI. I love what's going on with the technology and just staying in front of it, right? I want to just learn it all, embrace it all, and just be able to find a way to use what's out there to help as many people as possible, right? And it's cool in the context of what we do with Call Tools. We're helping call centers and businesses or whatever, but I look at it a little deeper. I like to help the individual, right? I think about that rec that's sitting there, that's making 300 dials a day or 400 dials a day, and that's their livelihood, and how can we make their life better and then watch them succeed, and
That's so my
all of
theory.
that's a great answer, but
So,
that's
I think it is. And it's one of my favorite things about technology too, because I think we both had some brainstorming sessions before, and really people are very quick to blame technology for everything and anything, right? From I'm just not very technical to the software doesn't work. There it is. But really, that's not an excuse. Like, we are living in a technology world, right?
sure.
And the only way that these softwares work is if people use them the same way and are consistent and are providing that feedback loop. Because together, the best experiences we have, is when we have the training and the team is using it, and that's when we identify problems, right? It's not hiding from it, not using it, and then saying, "Oh, it's just the software." It's software. It's gonna follow you wherever you go. It's like bad behavior, bad manners. They could keep following you.
Yeah, well, going back to again, when you base everything you do on KPIs and numbers, it weeds all of that out, right? People are like, oh, the technology wasn't working, this, that, the other thing, blah, blah, blah. Well, is it the technology or did you just choose not to work on Thursday and then you didn't do anything?
Did you not just dip in your leads, or did you?
Right. You're not learning from all the sales training and coaching and hours we spent with you, and you just want to say what you feel like saying instead.
Exactly.
Like, is it an excuse? I think sometimes it is, but again, I think if you embrace it, it can only help, and like you said, we're all connected. It's the technology is not going anywhere. It's only getting more and more powerful. So why would you run away from it? My stance is jump in, go, learn it and master it.
Um, well, thanks so much for being here today. It was a conversation. And to learn more about Call Tools, you can visit calltools.com and connect with Chaz on LinkedIn.
That's right, LinkedIn. Yeah, I think it shows up as Charles Tedesco, but search Chaz Tedesco actually come right up.
Well, well, thanks so much for joining me today. And to all my listeners, please tune in next week as I interview another industry expert in a topic to help you succeed on and offline. Aloha, and I'll see you in the pixels.
Thank you guys.